Amazon's CEO Jeff Bezos, TikTok, lost as much as 14 billion last week in personal wealth. Lost 14 billion. It's more than the GDP of some countries, I think. As Amazon stock plummeted last Friday. Now, this was in reaction to Amazon's earnings report, which revealed disappointing revenue and guidance for the up-and-coming holiday season. Mr. Bezos' net worth was 138 billion on Wednesday, and despite beating an earnings per share of $5.75 versus $3.14, Amazon grew revenue at a slower than expected pace. Reality bites, it seems. Now, analysts estimated $557 billion in revenue for the quarter, which is, again, absolutely staggering. If people didn't use Amazon and went to the local shops, that wealth and financial transactions can be spread around. These are a big threat, like Walmart previously. They are a big threat to the general populace, where all the wealth is going into one group. So all the money is being collected by one group, when a proper monetary system, the money should go through 6 or 7 hands, not one. This is how they control things. So we're all responsible. Stop the convenience method of using Amazon online. It's dangerous buying online anyway. You've all heard about the security issues of phones and whatnot. But you want to see your corner shops back and more people being employed, shut Amazon down, or at least make sure it goes down where it can be broken up and the wealth can be shared. Now, Amazon's guidance for the next quarter indicates growth is likely to slow down over the key shopping season, but the company still expects to see growth for its high-margin cloud and advertising businesses. Two stories from London, fairly shocking, one of them. Well, both are really. But a teenage nursery worker has become Britain's youngest ever convicted female paedophile this week, after admitting sexual assault and indecent charges and also images of the children. Sophie Elms, who was 18, pleaded guilty to 16 charges against 2 young children aged just 2 and 3 years of age. The charges include penetration, sexual assault, as well as taking and distributing indecent photographs of children. And the teen, who is from Swindon in Wiltshire, was just 17 when she committed these offences. Now, strangely, she worked at well, it's not strange, because they have a habit of going into children's places. She worked at a local nursery, but police are insisting that none of the alleged offences have said to have happened at the childcare facility. She pleaded guilty to penetrating the 2-year-old with her tongue and the 3-year-old with her fingers. And during the same dates, Elms also pleaded guilty to 2 counts of sexual assault, one against each of the youngsters, in which she intentionally, indecently touched them. And also between December of 16 and March 2018, it was heard that Elms committed 4 offences of taking indecent photographs of children, including 2 Category A photographs, 4 Category B and 1 Category C. I presume that's the levels of heinousness, A being the worst. And Elms committed 6 offences of distributing indecent photographs of children. That staggers me. Mainly because it's often considered a male thing to do rather than female. But like the feminism piece I did last week, it just doesn't appear to apply anymore. You know, I went to junior school and it was mixed up to the age of 11. And I can't think of one single girl who would have committed those acts or even thought about them. And yet here we are, as a 17-year-old girl in this day and age, interfering with children 2 and 3 years of age. I mean, what did he get out of it? I can't understand it. Sad times, it really is. London's water bosses are preparing for the worst by drawing up plans to turn sewage into water to prevent taps running dry, or faucets as they say here. And the Thames Water said that the UK's capital will lose £330 million, which is roughly $450 million a day, if dramatic measures aren't put in place to save the city's water supply. Now, the population of London is set to rise by 2 million people in the next 25 years, according to some estimates, which is a big change, which could lead to a 351 million litre daily shortfall of water, which is made worse, according to the portal people anyway, by climate change reducing national resources. Yeah, right. It's the whole top and bottom of this is the services, public services, were outsourced, and all instead of investing in the system, they invested in their own pockets up in the boardroom, and this is a problem in most European countries, and it's also a problem in North America. You know, we have to, in my opinion, put all essential services in the hands of a government or a government subsidiary that's not for profit. You know, people need water. It shouldn't be there to be profit making. Just shouldn't. It's wrong. Same applies to hospitals and social services and the police. All for-profit organisations. No, they're supposed to be for the benefit of looking after the people, not for profit making. Anyway, Thames Water plans to open a reuse plant at Deepham's sewage treatment works in northeast London, which will turn sewage into clean water, enough to drink, which will be a UK first, but the plant is not currently planned for everyday use, and it's intended for times for projected or actual drought. Now, discussions with the Environmental Agency are ongoing about the viability of this plan. Well, given Britain is surrounded by water, why do you need to use sewage? Why don't you just use the seawater? Yeah. Again, that requires investments, which doesn't please the shareholders. Well, it's time to turf shareholders out of those professions altogether. We don't need them. Where are we next? Thousands of people have taken to the streets of Rome. Big change. A sign of change. To protest at the Italian capital's rundown state. Yes, indeed, and we all know why. Demonstrators gathered outside the City Hall to denounce Mayor Virginia Raggi for failing to tackle issues including uncollected rubbish and potholed roads. Ms. Raggi took control of Rome in 2016 for the 5-Star Movement. Oh dear. I told you about 5 and 5-star movements and who they are. which formed a national coalition government earlier this year. No surprise. And her popularity has fallen after failing to address the indebted city's issues. On Saturday, demonstrators gathered waving the plastic orange netting that authorities used to cordon off areas of damaged roads, dangerous pavements and also fallen trees. And other problems that the city faces include rats and wild boar roaming the streets and poor transport services. Some 20 buses have already caught fire this year alone. And the process follows the collapse of an escalator at one of the main metro stations, which injured more than 20 people earlier this week, many of whom were Russian fans of the football team CSKA Moscow, who were visiting for a Champions League match against Roma. Now, Rome's first female mayor says she's making progress tackling the city's problems and needs more time to finish the job. But critics are saying things are getting worse, not better. How about taking some money out of the elephant in the room in the city of Rome and giving it back to the people to tidy up the infrastructure and improve people's lives? The elephant in Rome being the Vatican, for those who couldn't put two and two together. So I'll leave that for later. Here's another example, again it's in Britain, of the lack of care that too many exhibit. A single mum who was struggling to care for her wheelchair-bound daughter called her GP, the doctor, hours before committing suicide and was told she would have to wait 12 days for an appointment. 12 days for someone who's threatening suicide. You know, it's not a surprise. There's a lot of things that go on to do with the so-called health and social services care in the UK. It's fairly bad. Now, Jane Kavanagh had been a full-time carer to a 15-year-old daughter who was autistic and suffered from the degenerative condition cerebral ataxia. But despite living on her own with her two children, Miss Kavanagh had no care workers assigned to her. Again, social services, not interested in helping people, only collecting profits. There was also no adaptations made to her house, and she was never offered any respite care. While her parents did offer support, their house was deemed inadequate by the local authority officials, and Miss Kavanagh and her children had to move to a property described by family members as appalling. She took her life this year, having earlier left the children with her parents, and just 24 hours before her death, she had been prescribed antidepressants, called her GP surgery and explained she had suicidal thoughts, but was only offered an appointment 12 days later. Just wrong. That to me is should carry manslaughter, my opinion. Somebody cries for help, everyone should listen, and I mean everyone. This is part of the problem of why we are controlled so heavily by the cabal, because we don't care enough about each other. We don't look after each other enough. If we're going to go forward, that has to change radically, so that incidents like this are never repeated again. So whilst the government is cutting funding to social services, the police, the roads, the water problem in London, here's their latest pile of dog shite that came out of Monday's budget. Philip Hammond will unveil a new fund to educate children about the Holocaust, like they've never heard about it before. And this is in a bid to counter the rise of anti-Semitism in the UK. I'll have more about that anti-Semitism in a piece in the second hour. But the £1.7 million, which is roughly $2.3 million, will help schools visit World War II concentration camps in Germany, and it will also pay for additional school projects such as first-hand testimonies from Holocaust survivors and access to army documents and pictures. I bet they don't give access to the Red Cross documents. Never mind. Sources close to the Chancellor said the announcement was in response to growing misconceptions about anti-Semitism in Britain and pointed the finger at Jeremy Corbyn for helping to peddle myths. The announcement allegedly came after figures revealed that 1,382 anti-Semitic incidents took place last year, the highest on record. And the Treasury said the new fund will create a more tolerant society, encouraging students to pass on their learning and experiences to family and peers, and helping to tackle misconceptions around the Holocaust. Where's the £1.7 million fund for the Russian Holocaust? Crickets! No mention of it. A group of Jewish leaders told President Trump this week that he's no longer welcome in Pittsburgh until he denounces white nationalism following a shooting at a synagogue over the weekend. 11 members of the Pittsburgh affiliate of Bend the Ark, a Jewish Partnership for Justice, penned a letter to Trump following the Saturday shooting at the Tree of Life synagogue. Our Jewish community is not the only group you have targeted, the group wrote. You have also deliberately undermined the safety of people of colour, Muslims, the LGBTQ people, Christ, that gets longer by the week, and people with disabilities, really. Yesterday's massacre was not the first act of terror you incited against a minority group in our country, and Trump was fiercely criticised after he failed to condemn white supremacy and says that there is blame on both sides after last year's white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Now, the group also said Trump is not welcome in the city until he stops targeting minorities, immigrants and refugees. The president has spread lies and sowed fear about the migrant families in Central America, the group wrote. Clearly they have no knowledge. And they went on to say the Torah, again I'll have more on that later, teaches that every human being is made B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. Which one? This means all of us, the leaders wrote, in our neighbours, Americans and the people worldwide who have reached out to give our community strength, we find the image of God. I mean, it's sad that people died. There's no question about that. But how long are we going to tolerate this type of rhetoric from people based on lies? Essentially, this group has told the president in this country he can't visit a certain state. And they get away with it. Social Security recipients will enjoy a 2.8% increase in their benefits, which is the largest in 7 years, in 2019. But for some recipients, no surprise, the latest annual increase could end up costing them benefits. Now, according to the Social Security Administration, you may owe taxes on up to 50% of your Social Security benefits, as they call it. It's not a benefit if you've paid into it. This is how they change the words and people just accept it. You file a federal tax return as an individual and your combined income is between $25,000 and $34,000. You will pay up to 50%, and you file a joint return and your combined income is between 32 and 44. You may owe taxes on up to 85% of your Social Security benefits if you file an individual return and your combined income is more than $34,000, or you file a joint return and your combined income is more than $44,000. And according to a national survey released by the non-profit Senior Citizens League earlier this year, about 56% of all Social Security households pay taxes on part of their benefits. That has to change. Maybe we'll get the trust to look at that. Maybe the top brass and hierarchy will find out that that's another slush fund that needs to be shut down, as the trust has paid the Social Security, always has. Software that mimics human society is being tested to see if it can help prevent religious violence. Really? Dear me. Researchers used artificial intelligence algorithms. Interesting. That's exactly what Facebook uses, and also Cliff High. To simulate actions driven by sectarian divisions. Now, their model contains thousands of agents representing different ethnic background, races and religions, and Norway and Slovakia are trialling the tech to tackle tensions that can arise when Muslim immigrants settle in historically Christian countries. Still pushing the old narrative, eh? And the Oxford University researchers hope their system can be used to help governments respond to incidents such as the recent London so-called terror attacks. However, one independent expert said the tool needed more work before it can be used in real-life situations. This could be an extremely useful research project when it reaches maturity as a thought tool for analysing factors involved in religious conflict, according to Professor Noel Sharkey. Well, you could start by telling the truth about religions for a start. Then we can eliminate a lot of the nonsense. Higher mortgage rates and overheated home prices hit Southern California home sales hard in September, and the number of new and existing houses and condominiums sold during the month has plummeted by nearly 18% compared to last year. That was the slowest September since 2007, which is why we have all the marketing people suggesting another housing crash is on its way. We'll see. Sales have been falling on an annual basis for much of this year, but this was the biggest annual drop for any month in almost 8 years. It was also more than twice the annual drop seen in August, and the double whammy of higher prices and rising mortgage rates, thanks to the rogue element in the Fed, has priced out some would-be buyers and prompted others to take a wait-and-see stance. And there was one caveat to last month's sharp annual decline. This September had one less business day for recording transactions, and adjusting for that, over the year-over-year decline would be about 13%, which is still the largest in 4 years. On a monthly basis, sales fell 22% in California in September compared to August. Usually it's about 10%. Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called on all participants in the Yemen civil war to agree to a ceasefire. I did tell you to watch those particular regions about a month ago. And the ceasefire should be agreed in the next 30 days. And a call that comes amid criticism of US support for the Saudi-led coalition in the conflict. 30 days from now, we want to see everybody around a peace table based on a ceasefire, based on pullback from the border, and then based on ceasing dropping of bombs that will permit the UN Special Envoy Martin Griffiths. He's to get them all together in Sweden and end this war. Mattis said at the event at the US Institute of Peace in Washington. Christ, that's a misnomer. And his call was later echoed by Mike Pompeo, who issued a statement saying that the United States calls on all parties to support UN Special Envoy Martin Griffiths in finding a peaceful solution to the conflict in Yemen. Now, consultations under the UN Special Envoy must commence this November in a third country, according to Mike Pompeo. We want to stop the war on the Yemen, just deal with the clowns on our own soil. Fairly simple, really. President Trump today said he intends to take executive action next week to end the abuse of the US asylum system. A plan that could include massive tent cities at the southern border aimed at holding migrants indefinitely and making it more difficult for them to remain in the country. Trump offered few other details during remarks at the White House today, where he reiterated unsubstantiated claims, according to the media anyway, that he's made in recent weeks that a caravan of migrants from Central America travelling north through Mexico by foot represents a national security threat. Yes, it does. Despite what the clowns on the media are stating, we've been saying this for many, many months now, what they were up to. This is Langley 3 and Obama and his Muslim Brotherhood gang, allied with FARC guerrillas out of Colombia and Venezuela and others, all to cause mayhem within our border. That's the only reason they're being brought here. And for those of you who didn't listen last week, every one of those people, apparently, particularly the original ones, there's been others that have been added to the mix, were paid between $1,500 and $2,500 each to go on that caravan. That's our money they're wasting. Now, Trump painted the group, which include many families with children. This is a Portal People report, so it's heavily biased, talking about the children. You weren't interested in the children that was being harvested in tens of thousands before Trump arrived. Why didn't he focus on it then? Perhaps they were all using the children for various methods. And he described it as dangerous and akin to an invasion, which is exactly what it is. Now, the President's remarks, carried live on cable news, came just days before next Tuesday's midterm elections. And the latest bid, according to the Portal People, by Trump to make immigration the top campaign issue. No. He's not making it the top campaign issue at all. And it is the Portal People and the rogue elements who have deliberately created this issue to A, disrupt the election, and also other matters pending. It's all about stretching resources. But, you know, Trump's put 5,200. Rumour has it that we will end up with 15,000 troops down there. That's how serious it is.